Alright, so, all together, indestructible Captain Scarlet. Dun 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 dun.
Oh, I don't know that bit, yeah.
No, you were meant to do the drums at the same time, so then we could line it up.
Could not just do the clicks.
Well, there we go, click. Honest Andy's Discount Moon Show! Hello and welcome to a sort of special edition of Honest Andy's Discount Moon Show. So we're all still in lockdown, and since we're in lockdown we're all basically watching things. I'm re-watching old episodes of shows I like Simpsons, Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, while I'm doing video animations. And then I started watching an episode of Thunderbirds while animating the latest video, and I remembered that there's some episodes of Captain Scarlet that are actually set on the moon. So I figured, okay, that would be a good thing for you and I to chat about, because we've mentioned Captain Scarlet and Thunderbirds in the past, so might be a nice little thing that we can talk about. The episode is called Lunarville 7, from Jerry Anderson's 1967 series Captain Scarlet. So if you want to go away and watch that, I think it's only like 25 minutes. Pause this episode now, because we're going to talk about it in great detail and probably spoiler it a bit. Well, definitely spoiler it a bit if you haven't seen it. So, spoiler warning from this point out. So I take it you've watched it at least once. Rick, what did you think of Lunarville 7?
Yes, I did watch it earlier today. Yeah, it was good. I've not really ever watched Captain Scarlet that I can remember. I think I have seen one or two episodes at some point, but I don't really remember of it because it all merged in with Stingray and Thunderbirds. So, yeah, just a quick one. So it started with the Mysterons are the sworn enemies of Earth. I can't remember the Captain Scarlet sort of lore. It's like, what, did we do anything to the Mysterons, or they did something to us, or why have we got sworn enemies?
So, here is what happens in the first episode of Captain Scarlet and why he is indestructible. There was a mission to Mars, of which a Spectrum agent, Captain Black, was a part of. And while this probe was exploring Mars, it kind of like went over a hill on Mars and it discovered a Mysteron base. And it's like, oh my god, an alien base. This is incredible. And as they approached it, the Mysterons obviously saw them, and these turrets appeared and locked on to the Earth probe, the Earth mission. Now, unbeknownst to the Earth mission, these turrets were just identification turrets. They were just basically scanning this probe to see what it was. But the astronauts on this Martian probe mistook it as a sign of hostility, and they were like, oh my god, they've got guns, they're going to fire at us, so let's fire first. So it was a preemptive strike, and they destroyed the Mysteron base.
Right, Americans.
Yeah. But Mysterons can regenerate an exact likeness of an object or person. So they recreated their base, and they were like, you know, we're peaceful, we didn't do anything to you. But now, upon first contact, you fired at us, you opened fire on us, you are our mortal enemy. The first thing you did when we met in person was start a war, so you're our mortal enemy from this point out. So imagine, like, you go to the pub, and the first thing someone does is punch you in the face. I'd say that person's an enemy from this point on.
Yeah, but probably not their entire species and planet they come from. That's fine. So the Mysterons don't like us because of that.
Yes.
Okay. I'd also say, like, it's really not that big of a deal if you can just regenerate. So there's a difference between I kicked over your pint of beer and you've got to go and buy another one, and I kicked over your pint of beer but you can regenerate another one without much effort to yourself.
Not only that, imagine that I've just got unlimited wealth. So I'm not actually down a fiver because I've got unlimited wealth. It's just a mild inconvenience for me having to get up and get another pint.
Yeah. So, okay, so the Mysterons are just very...
I should point out, this is a kid's show.
Yeah, it just started with, we are the Mysterons, the sworn enemies of Earth. It's like, okay, what have we done? So why is Captain Scarlet indestructible?
In the first episode, he was just a mere human, and the Mysterons were attacking certain people, and Spectrum was set up to kind of like... I think they were like an agency beforehand, but then they were like re-tasked with, right, you're Earth's guardians, the Mysterons. You will help protect the Mysteron targets and escort them and look after them and make sure that the Mysterons don't do these people harm. So, they were targeting someone. Captain Scarlet was asked to escort them, but the Mysterons killed Captain Scarlet and recreated him, so Captain Scarlet was a Mysteron agent. Now, what happened is, in the first episode, there was a Mysteron battle on the top of this huge building, which is actually a car park, and then Captain Scarlet got knocked off the top of this. So he fell to his death as a Mysteron agent, and the lore of the show is Captain Scarlet was a Mysteron, fell from a great height, is no longer a Mysteron, is human, but has the power to recreate like a Mysteron. So, human, but has the recreation abilities.
So, could he recreate, like, a spaceship?
No, he can only recreate himself.
Ah, okay.
But it does open up plot hole central when every episode from this point on is like, we'll just send in Captain Scarlet.
Yeah.
Captain Blue, you don't need to go.
Yeah.
If he gets shot, it's fine.
Can he send in 2 Captain Scarlets? Or can you only have one at the same time?
You can only have one at a time.
Okay. Yeah. Seems harsh to send in everyone else as well.
A little bit. The thing with Captain Scarlet is the Mysterons can do absolutely anything at any time to fit the plot. And other times when I'm watching, it's like, well, Mysterons, why didn't you just do this? But I'm just applying too much logic to it. And it is meant for a kid's show. It has very big sci-fi ideas that are executed in a very juvenile way.
Yeah.
Because it is for kids, so they can't go too high level. But there's still some really clever ideas in there.
Yeah, no. Oh, it's good fun. There's a bit of backstory I just wanted filling in.
That's fair enough.
The other thing is, how come all the women don't have a rank, and it's only sort of men who have a rank, and the others are just called angels?
Well,
Apart from 1950s sexism.
I don't know is the answer. It was created by Jerry Anderson and his wife. The Angels, the only women in Captain Scarlet, who happen to go out on a few dates with the captains of Spectrum, but the women in Captain Scarlet are the Angels, and they are Rhapsody, Melody, Harmony, Symphony, and Destiny, because they ran out of musical things that end in E.
Yeah, could have had timpani.
You could have. I don't know why they didn't have that.
just the timpani is, every time she enters a room, she trips over a number of items like a kettle and stuff, and causes sort of right. I mean, it does mean kettle drum,
but still, it's more musical than Destiny.
Yeah.
You're right to point that out, though, but I don't know what to tell you. There was an episode of Thunderbirds where it was called City of Fire, and it was this huge, colossal skyscraper that caught fire, and the reason it caught fire was because a car crashed in the car park underneath this huge skyscraper, and this fire spread throughout the entire car park, and so it went from the ground up. It was the special effects of that episode are stunning, but the plot of the show is, it was because a woman was driving her husband's car and he was like teaching her to drive, and she just kept hitting the accelerator as opposed to the brake pedal, and then the whole episode ends. They're reading the newspaper, International Rescue saved the city in the sky, and it said here that the city on fire was caused by a car crash, didn't it, Tintin? Yes, Alan, it did. And did it say anything about the driver? Yes, Alan, it was a woman driver. Ha 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 ha. Fade to credits.
Dear.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it was it was the humour at the time. They didn't know any better, or if they did know any better, they chose they weren't inclined to act on it. So, what can we learn from this? Well, we're in a better time, and a more woke time, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Well, it was only a few years ago Saudi Arabia allowed women drivers, so I'm going to blame Captain Scarlet episodes that have ended up in Riyadh that have then that have been taken as like genuine documentaries.
Well, it's set in 2068.
Well, the folks in Riyadh are like, we don't want to end up like that. Best not let women drive. So I can only assume it's that.
Well, I don't know what to say.
But on that, no, do the sort of angels have a role? Because like the captains seem to go and do stuff, Like, and in Thunderbirds, everyone's got a role in that. If you're one of the Thunderbirds, you get a ship. And Brains invents stuff, and Lady Penelope, she just sort of funds stuff. And
Do you remember the spaceships involved in Captain Scarlet? You had Spectrum Headquarters, which was Cloud Base, and on that you had certain fighter jets. And the fighter jets were Angels. They're like tiny little red arrow looking things, but they're white and really sprightly. And they were piloted by the Angels. So it was basically all the women were like their go-to fighter pilots.
oh right, yeah, I did.
They weren't just eye candy. They didn't just have women on Cloud Base just lounging around.
I wouldn't be surprised at all, based on what you said. But yeah, so sorry, Skybase, is that sort of aircraft carrier aircraft?
Cloud Base, and yes, it is. It floats.
Yeah, I was going to say that because I put a note saying like how much fuel must that burn?
Oh, quite a bit. But again, it is set in the year 2068, so you could say that, I don't know, we've managed to have some kind of helium regeneration, like being able to take helium from the atmosphere and break it down into the core components or something like that. I don't know how Cloud Base floats. They don't say in the show.
Because yeah, it seemed to be the equivalent of getting an aircraft carrier up in the air and just keeping it stable. Which I was like, okay, yeah, good luck with that.
It would actually be more fuel efficient to keep it above the Earth's atmosphere in a geostationary orbit.
Yeah, I was thinking, just put it on the ground. That's very efficient. like fundamentally, you got planes. Instead of, if you're sat around not flying planes, you might as well not fly them all on the ground, as opposed to hoist them in the air.
Yeah, it's not like Tracy Island, where the whole point is, we need a space to keep our secret massive aircraft, so we'll put it on an island in the middle of the ocean. That'll be fine. No, you're right. Cloud Base is a huge waste of fuel for what can only be hubris purposes. So what did you think of the episode Lunarville 7?
I thought it was, as in plot-wise, or just in general?
Let's just stick with the broad strokes of the story and not the nitty-gritty of the plot just yet.
No, in general, it's a nice sort of kiddies type plot, but it was a sort of, we need to do this thing utilitarianly, so we need to have this conversation. So I think, like, when they landed at Lunar Base, whatever, it was, hello, we need to see the Lunar Commander. Yes, I will take you to the Lunar Commander.
Yeah.
Straight to, as opposed to probably sort of, you're right, everyone's, okay, cool. Do you need
the dialogue isn't like Pulp Fiction, where it's there to flesh out the characters. Like, there's a line in it when they're like, oh yes, Spectrum have arrived. It's their first time on the moon. And their last? Yes, it will be their last. Maniacal laugh. Ha 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 ha.
My favourite lines in it was when they broke out and the base commander goes, gone! They can't be gone. How? And the other person goes, well, I went into their room and he said, I'm not interested in details. Well, you've literally asked for details. But once again, it's the sort of utilitarian, well, we can't have him explain stuff. We'll just move on the plot. Yeah, it just went from, right, we need to get these people to the moon base. We need to get them suspicions set up that they know they have got to go to whatever it was, the sea of something or other, and then they head out to it.
Well, let's just have a quick recap of the plot. It opens with the commander of Lunarville 7, the Lunar Commander, basically saying, I have brokered a deal with the Mysterons. The moon is not part of Earth. We have 4,000 people here. We're basically seceding from Earth. We're our own entity. We've got our own resources. We're our own people now. Screw y'all. I've spoken to the Mysterons directly, and we've brokered a deal, and we're not going to bother them, and they're not going to bother us. This is your fight, not ours. So Spectrum were like, well, that's a bit weird. Maybe they're a Mysteron agent. Let's go and find out. 1, we need to know, how did you talk to the Mysterons directly? And 2, you could be a Mysteron agent. So Captain Scarlet, Captain Blue, and Lieutenant Green, they go to Lunarville 7, and while they're there, they're doing some digging and some investigating. One of their missions, there is some activity in the Humboldt Sea, which is an area of the moon, which is a real area on the moon that's partially visible, but mostly on the far side. So they're suspecting that there is some activity going on the far side of the moon, and while on Lunarville 7, they're hoping to go check it out, see it in person, and then also investigate whether these people are Miscellaneous agents or not. So as it goes on, they try to get to the Humboldt Sea on a moon hopper, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah.
And then they're told, no, we're not going there. So they're all acting really shady. So they then steal the moon hopper later on at night, go and have a look. Oh, lo and behold, there's a lot of Mr. activity going on. Come back to the base. The lunar commanders are like, hey, you found our plan. You'll never get away with this, Earthman, you meddling Spectrum kids. And then Spectrum escape, Lunarville 7 blows up in true Jerry Anderson style, the end. Although I should point out, this is actually part of a trilogy, and there are 2 more episodes that fall into this idea of stuff on the moon. So I think that would be good to explore those in future episodes, and by then, hopefully, we should figure out the format of how to review stuff like this a bit better. But that's basically what happens in the episode. So, what did you think, or what do you think of the idea of these lunar people seceding?
Yeah, well, okay, so you're allowed principle of self-determination. Usually you get a bit of warning. Country or a region's going to secede, like in Scottish independence, that's been going on for a while, or Catalonia and so on. There's usually a sort of group, a special interest group of some sort. Or
yeah.
A population that you kind of know that, they want to go independent. So that probably not particularly realistic. And the other thing is it seemed to only be the base commander who knew that they were going to declare independence, and everyone else didn't, because he asked the computer at the beginning, like, here's my speech, how's it going to go down? And I did like the sort of audience reception predicting computer. That was quite good.
Oh, Sid. By the way, obviously that will have reminded you of HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, the Stanley Kubrick film. You know that?
I do. I've never seen it. I do mean to.
But you're familiar with, like, HAL 9000, like, open the pod bay doors, HAL. I'm sorry, I cannot do that. And then this network is controlling the whole base and eventually goes haywire. So HAL didn't appear in the Space Odyssey novels by Arthur C. Clarke, which was written in the 50s. Now, Arthur C. Clarke did work on the film, and the film came out in 1968, and it was the first time to feature HAL 9000, but this episode aired in 1967, so part of me wants to think that, like, Sid the talking robot on Lunarville 7 from Captain Scarlet somewhat influenced Space Odyssey.
Oh, right.
But considering there's like 6 months between this episode coming out and Space Odyssey being aired, I think they will have had the script and the sets way in production by the time this episode came out.
Yeah, that's that's not far-fetched, but yeah, you're going to do a lot of rewriting if you say, "Oh, quick, add talking robot."
But we've already built the set, Stanley. Do it again.
But yeah, so it was interesting that it just suddenly declared independence. I think his argument was, well, we were dependent on the Earth, but we've kind of got our stuff now, right? We're independent.
Which is really ungrateful.
Yeah, well, that's it. And you got 4,000 people. I assume also was he the base commander or the lunar commander or something?
So he says lunar commander. And there are several bases on the moon, so I think it's a case of, alright, well, this is the head base. Although you'd think it should be Lunarville 1, but Lunarville 7, this is our main base, I'm the leader. He does say Lunar Commander. And they do actually, like, have what could only be described as light, childish squabbles throughout the episode when they're like, yes, on the moon here we're all self-sufficient and we're managing to, we can make our own water. And then Lieutenant Green was rightly like, which initially was brought from Earth. It's like,
yeah,
we brought the supplies here.
But it's also a very, very minimal threshold for independence. So it's like, okay, we're now self-sufficient. We're off. It's all right. So where are you going to get your trade goods or something from? You've got kind of what appears to be a very utilitarian set of goods there. What are you going to trade? Where's your next bit of income coming from?
It's like people who are like, I'm going to go live off the land, and I'm going to go off-grid, live off the land. It's like, okay, fair enough. Are you going to be in a tent? Are you going to build a hut from absolutely everything, there is going to have to be some human input in here. And even if they do manage to build a hut, a house out of the natural resources around them, they're completely off grid. There's still things that are being controlled by humans, like for example, they're not being attacked by bears anymore, or any wild creature that could do them harm, because of infrastructure that's put in place from society, so they're not truly off grid.
Where you're cutting those logs with a saw. Where did you get the saw from? Shut up. Did you build your own iron ore mine? Smelt the steel yourself?
There is someone who tried to do that with a toaster, and they tried to make a toaster by forging everything themselves, including going to mines and getting the raw materials for the metal to make the grid.
Right.
It looked awful, but it was part of an art project. I'll try and dig it up. I'm hoping I can find it, but they made like a little documentary about it, one of the fluff pieces on the news, but I'll try and find it and add it in the show notes for like the natural resource toaster or something like that. But yeah, they do touch on a few things that we've spoken about on the podcast before, when they're being able to talk about hydrogen and oxygen are present on the moon in their own elements, so we're able to pull them together to make water, H2O. So the idea of mining the moon for raw materials and then from that making your own has been in science fiction for ages, but now it's actually becoming a reality that we're able to explore. Like in the previous episode, we just talked about making moon bricks out of pea.
They don't mention that in Captain Scarlet.
No, funnily enough.
And also, I'm not expecting, as soon as they make their first few moon bricks, they go, right, we're now going to go independent.
But I think it's quite interesting, because this episode came out in 1967, 2 years before man first landed on the moon, and in the opening little monologue, they say, since man first landed in the 70s, so clearly when they were writing this, they thought there's no way we're going to land on the moon this decade.
Yes.
So they say the 70s, and even then they don't give a specific year, they just say the 70s.
Yeah, I did notice that. I was going, oh, good, but you're just not quite there. You know, you took a risk.
I can't blame them. I mean,
No.
You don't think we're going to land in 2024. I'm getting ever sceptical of this, although the latest SpaceX mission, they just docked while we were recording the last episode, by the way. That is a step in the right direction for them getting to the moon by 2024, but I still think it's a rough date.
Yeah.
And you reckon it's going to be delayed?
Yeah. Even more so now because of Corona. Sorry, just on the spaceship, I did like their countdown to the countdown. That was good.
Did they do that? Okay.
They went like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, everyone prepare for liftoff, and then they lifted off. So what was the countdown for? Everyone needed a sort of, getting ready to be prepared for liftoff, because if the captain had sort of said get ready for liftoff too early without them being prepared, they'd be shot.
My notes on that are, I love a good rocket launch in Thunderbirds, just because there's actual real fire coming out of those rockets. And it's like a proper propulsion as well. Like, it's not just a simple flame coming out. Like, they've made something with gunpowder to actually cause that, like, burst of energy coming out. So there's some real pyrotechnics going on, which I quite like.
Yeah, probably got the local fireworks maker.
Yeah, I mean, the lunar base is made of colanders. They went to the store, got colanders, and then they put them on top of like some cylinders to make them look futuristic, and they cut bits off, but primarily they're colanders. Like in Thunderbirds, in Thunderbird 1's base, there's a lemon squeezer behind it to make it look like a massive fan. You get what you can to make it look futuristic, and you don't have to actually just glue bits on, you just cut things off to make them look futuristic.
I didn't notice that, so it worked. Well done.
Yeah, exactly. So, speaking of the machines aspect of it, what did you think of the lunar hopper?
Yeah, the bouncy vehicle.
Yeah.
In principle, alright. You can just use a wheeled vehicle, so it wasn't obvious why not to use that. But they did say, we want to go to this sea, and then the guy said, well, that's 200 miles away.
Yeah.
Then later in the episode, they'll say, oh, we've got to get there and back in 2 hours. There is no way that thing is going at 100 miles an hour.
Oh, God, yeah. You're spot on.
Because I was thinking, it's like, 200 miles away, at that speed, you're going to be like at 10 miles an hour, which is probably an overestimate. I think it was going about 5 miles an hour.
Hang on. The actual size of it is probably quite big, because you just saw the interior. So from that, you can infer a size. Let's assume it's 30 metres. So it was going quite high, and it was going quite far. So let's assume that it's covering, I don't know, a kilometre a hop. I think that's reasonable.
Oh, it didn't look that big to me, so... okay, if it's that, but it looked...
So I reckon it could do a kilometre a hop because of the way that the gravity is. However, when they said, it's surprisingly smooth, but the actual model is going like crunch.
Yeah.
Crumpling underneath it. Because they have to make it look like it's got suspenders, so they like decrease with the actual thing. And they're like, it's a surprisingly smooth ride, despite the fact that it looks like it would dislocate your shoulders every time it landed.
Yeah. No, it looked quite inefficient.
It's probably the best thing for travelling on the moon, though, because, well, your moon buggies only work on flat surfaces, and the moon is going to be hilly and rocky. So, for example, with the hopper, if it goes into a crater, it can hop out. Whereas a buggy, you'd have to go around a crater. This will allow you to just go, right, we're hopping in and then hopping out.
Yeah, I mean, if it is massively long... You reckon that's a kilometre? Or each one of those hops? If that was 30 metres long, no way, that's a kilometre. Get the ruler out. Watch it again, because otherwise I was thinking like going 200 miles in that thing would just take years.
Yeah, a kilometre is a bit rich. Would you accept 500 metres?
It's sort of like some sort of weird negotiation.
Well, does that buy into it? So imagine like 500 metres, 20 seconds a hop.
Yeah. I will have to get my ruler out and start measuring, but I think it would have taken bloody ages. It's not going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, no, it's not going to go 100 miles an hour. But the Humboldt Sea is real, and while watching this episode, they say, oh, it's entirely obscured from view. How did they know about it? Because the first images of the far side of the moon came from Luna 3, which is a Soviet mission back in 1958, I think it was. And the image that it returned was blurry as hell. Like, you just saw a few huge craters, but nothing to be able to determine, oh, it's this sea and that sea. There were some other images that were returned, but they, again, weren't as detailed as the ones we do now. But it turns out the Humboldt Sea is, like, on the northeast corner of the moon, and you can actually see it for most of the time. But because the moon has this, like, I think the term is wavering, where it's... Libration, that's the phrase. It's sometimes partially obscured from view, but you can see it most of the time, and then the Humboldt Sea actually stretches around most of the back of it. So they had this name of something that sounded cool, Humboldt Sea, and I think they took a liberty and said, oh, it's entirely on the far side, when actually it's mostly on the far side, but we can still see it from this side. One of the other notes I have here is the identification badges make them look like they've all given 50p to charity and got a sticker back.
Yeah. Yeah, they are, as someone who works with security systems, they are a bit of a heavyweight badge, and also just the let's not add our pictures on it.
Yep.
Or any other identification.
The fact it works is you talk to Sid, the computer that controls everything. Hello, Sid, I am Captain Scarlet. Your identification badge says you're Captain Scarlet. Here is your security clearance. Whereas if you took the Lunar Commanders and said, hello, I'm the Lunar Commander. Yes, your badge says you are the Lunar Commander. What do you want to do?
Yes, whoever designed that system. I hope they're not a member of the British Computer Society. They would be done for professional membership, or they'd have their professional membership removed for bad security design. So SID is so advanced it can control everything, predict the entirety of the response of a population in terms of a political speech, but can't work out people who are speaking. The nearest badge to where your voice came from is that one, so therefore you are that one. Because obviously, but you're not sending the command through the badge.
Yeah, exactly.
You're sending it through your mouth, so there has to be a correlation between the badge and the mouth. So presumably, it's saying, well, that mouth has just issued a statement, which is the badge nearest that mouth. Therefore, that is that person, as opposed to which voice is that.
So Thunderbirds has managed to predict a lot of things, as has Captain Scarlet, in terms of like fantastical ideas that have become a real life technology. Like in Thunderbirds, they talked by looking into a watch And you can do that with the iWatch. Now, the Apple Watch, you can just like look into it and you can have video calls with it. So that was kind of like inspired from Thunderbirds. Yet they couldn't think about facial recognition. And I'm pretty sure this has come up in other episodes. But facial recognition on the moon, no, it's not worth it. Especially for checking that the lunar controller is who he says he is.
Like there's no other system, like a password system.
Yeah, but as we've said, it is for children. Like, you can't expect huge, like, intricacies and, like, oh, here is a very accurate hacking scene because kids are going to turn off to that. That's probably why it ends up with the whole base being blown up.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, this is a note that I made a note of because it really stuck out to me. At the end, when they're wrapping up the episode, Colonel White's saying, like, oh yeah, the Lunar Commander and Orson died on base, but the way that he phrases it, oh, they were destroyed in the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And I was like, excuse me?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I had a look at the definition of the word, and obviously it refers to the tragedies that took place in World War II. It can refer to a sacrifice completely consumed by fire, as like a burnt offering, but it can also refer to a great or complete devastation or destruction, especially by fire. So they've used the correct term because they were lost in this great destructive act. So you could say, you know, they were destroyed in the fire. They died, blew up in the fire, in the explosion. Shorthand for that would be saying, oh, they died in the Holocaust. But this came out in 1967. The term Holocaust, to refer to the awful atrocities during World War II, was very much used then, as it wasn't now, and in the 60s. So why that word? There's a lot of other words you can use, and you've obviously made things simplistic because you're making a show for children. Why include the word Holocaust?
Possibly to downplay it in the same way as they were downplaying the role of women. That's my impression of the 1960s. What I did like, though, was Captain Blue had blue pyjamas.
Did Captain Green have green pyjamas?
They didn't show it, but it was that was good. That each captain must wear their colours even when in bed with issue pyjamas.
Oh, how annoyed would you be if you're like, oh great, going on a work trip to the moon, this is amazing. Oh wait, I have to share a room with the other two blokes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You've got
Captain Pink. I know, I'm actually Captain White, but my pyjamas were in the same wash as Captain Scarlet.
Actually, he wasn't Captain Pink in the show, he was Captain Magenta.
Okay.
And it was Captain Ochre as well was another one, because Captain Brown might have sounded a bit weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, had to all share a room on the moon, despite the fact there's a lot of space on the moon. You could have had, like, a nice little residential complex of, like, everyone gets their own room. But no, you get in the 3-person suite where you're all in the same room.
What's the rule with Captain Scarlet and his hat? Because sometimes he wears it, like even at the night, and then sometimes he doesn't.
Yes, I did notice that. I think it was a case of they're in their room, so they're kind of like winding down, like start to take off the uniform. But then when he's on duty, on the missions, he's got the hat. Oh, also, I remember now. So on the rim of the hat, there's a microphone built in that comes down to chat into. So it might be, I need to talk to Captain Blue. So there's a microphone built into the helmets. Speaking of the suite that was bugged, do you know of the Hotel Viru in Tallinn, which is in Estonia?
No.
So Tallinn is this beautiful Baltic city right on the coast of the Baltic Sea, and quite often people from Finland do day trips to Tallinn because it's significantly cheaper to go there, drink, and then go back into Finland where it's a bit more expensive. Tallinn also has a huge Russian population and was behind the Iron Curtain. So Tallinn was a huge tourist population for everyone in the Soviet Union. You had this wonderful beach. It was a very medieval looking city, just a really pretty place to go on holiday. So it was very popular with tourists, and a lot of people from the West did also go to Tallinn as well. And one of the main places you stayed was the only tall skyscraper-like hotel in Tallinn called Hotel Viru, and it boasted in all of the like pamphlets and all of the paraphernalia for it. They were saying, hey, come stay at the 12-story Hotel Viru in Tallinn. But if you're on the street level and you're counting the floors, there's 13 levels to this hotel. And that's because the 13th floor was a KGB listening station, because every single room was bugged.
Oh, right.
And what happened was you'd be in the bar and you'd have some drinks, not smoking, but they put an ashtray down between you because the ashtray was bugged. And that bit where Captain Scarlet's like, I think the room is bugged. And so he tells everyone to go quiet, they turn up the volume, and then screams like, "Good night, Orson!" That reminds me of like one of the journalists who went into Hotel Viru, and in his room, every time he went in, he would just go like, "Testing, testing, hello, yes, I'm back here now." Because he knew the room was going to be bugged.
Yeah.
But from that point on, every single visit he had to the Soviet Union, he had to go through 3 times the checks. They like made his life especially hard to travel into the Soviet Union and travel around,
right.
because of his like arrogant streak. Yeah, disrespect. That's the best word to describe it.
I've done sort of an exercise of bug hunting in the army.
Oh, right.
As part of some training. And broadly, you keep quiet. You don't sort of say, right, we're looking for bugs now. Everyone just carry on normal conversation, because that kind of gives the game away.
Well, to be fair, they did whisper it. Captain Scarlet did whisper, even though that would probably still be picked up by the bug.
Yeah, so, and also, generally, you don't just say, we found one, that's the room clear.
Yeah, they were like found the bug, the room is clear, and then Orson goes, "Oh, Captain Scarlet found the bug, let them make their plans." It's like, surely you'd want to listen in on that.
Yeah.
Don't go, "Okay, they know we know, let's have a little game with this." Yeah. It's like, no, you're a spy, listen in more.
Yes. So, I was amused by that.
Would you, because this is part of a trilogy, the next one being Crater 101, would you be interested at reviewing that at a later date?
Yeah, that'd be good. I'll have a look at Crater 101.
I'll send you a link for that of where you can stream it. I don't think there's anywhere you can stream it legally at the moment, although I did find 1 or 2 places that hosts it that I think those streams are illegal though, unfortunately, so I'm going to not promote those and include them in the show notes. Instead, I'd encourage you to go and actually buy the DVDs from Amazon, because they are actually pretty cheap. For all of Captain Scarlet, I think it's something like 12 quid, which is good because there's like 30 odd episodes and loads of behind the scenes features and some like how they made the models, which I always find fascinating. However, I do realise that hardly anyone owns a device that can actually play the DVDs now. Everyone streams everything. Well, yeah, I've got a PS2, so I can do stuff off that, but my computer doesn't actually have a CD drive anymore, so I've got an external one so I can burn CDs and listen to them in the car. But yeah, on the whole, becoming a discless world. Do you have any final thoughts on Lunarville 7?
Yeah, at the end, when the guy gets annoyed at the computer and then starts shooting it, that'll do nothing.
Oh, yeah, that's something that's such a trope in the 70s. I just got distracted by my own tangent, because this happens in Moonraker, where Bond stops a thing from happening by shooting it. And I hate this mentality of, oh, you just shoot the thing and it blows up. And shoot the computer, blow up the base. Who rigged up that system?
Yeah, well, it's a highly critical machine, but if you break the screen, then the whole thing blows up.
And not just the computer, the base.
Yeah,
that has the Lunar Commander on it.
Yeah, well done them. It's like me saying I'm fed up of Google being slow, I'm going to shoot my screen, and then suddenly Google not only crashes, but blows up. Like,
all the campuses across the world, the one in Dublin, the one in San Francisco, the one in San Diego, the one in London, the one in Singapore, boom, all blown up.
That's it. Yeah, they've set up their protocols wrong if that happens, quite frankly. They ought to use safer protocols.
Yeah, that was something that did kind of frustrate me a little bit as well. But conveniently, they had evacuated all the people from Lunarville 7. Don't know where.
Yeah, Lunarville 6.
Yeah, or Lunarville 4, that was the one that was close by, where they say we grow all our food here. Which, by the way, there have been experiments done recently where they've simulated the lunar soil, and you can actually grow things in lunar soil.
Oh, cool. Give it a go.
You need to simulate the soil first, but yeah, go nuts.
Right, will do.
As a concept, I quite enjoyed this. Broad stroke story, it's quite a proper sci-fi idea. You have a civilization on the moon. There's this interwar between Earth and another planet. The moon's like, well, we didn't start this. We're responsible for ourselves. You're dragging us into a war that we don't want to be part of. No thanks, we're seceding. So that's like quite an interesting idea in itself. And then they explore some other things by like mining the moon and making the best of the resources they have there. So there's some solid sci-fi concepts. Just the execution of them is a bit poor, and the dialogue is really basic and mundane. But it is meant to be for kids. Although when you go look for Captain Scarlet in the likes of HMV, it's not in the children's section. It's in the science fiction section.
Oh, right, yeah. It's probably just adults like yourself getting it.
One of the notes I have here is, we'll pad the runtime with the lunar hopper, because they have scenes of it taking off, going up, and then landing, and they recycle that footage a fair bit. Which I understand why they do it. They did it in Stingray all the time. They did it in Thunderbirds a few times. It takes a long time to create the model, create the world. So if you have the footage, you may as well use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also love seeing the base getting blown up at the end, because it's just... Derek Meddings is a fantastic visual effects artist, and he did some solid... I just love the explosions of like painstakingly making a model of a power plant or some underwater base or an oil rig or a skyscraper, and fill it full of fireworks and blow it up now.
Yeah, that's kind of what they did at the end of Team America: World Police.
Oh yeah,
all the sets. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was the point. It was a tribute to like Thunderbirds. What star rating would you give the episode then?
Solid 4 stars, I think. That was good.
Oh, okay, that's quite generous.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I'll give it 4 Misterons out of 5.
Okay, cool.
So tune in next time, where it'll be returning back to the normal show, the monthly one where we'll talk about like moon news and any other moons of the solar system. Probably the next moon will be Io, and then we'll discuss some moon news, and then from there we might do another one of Captain Scarlet. We'll see what the feedback is for this. So tune in next time, and yeah, check out Lunarville 7, the Captain Scarlet episode, and tweet us your thoughts or leave a comment on the SoundCloud website, or however you want to get in touch with the show. You can even email your thoughts. Let us know what you think of Lunarville 7 and if you enjoyed it, and we'll try and add some feedback back into the show. So until next time, bye bye.
Bye bye.